Okay, I think everyone who's waiting is probably in the room at this stage. So, firstly, apologies again. We had some of the technical issues, but we are now on track. So I'm Sarah Jane, your Vice Chair for the ISESA, and we're delighted to kick off with our second webinar series of this year. I'll introduce you to our special guest, Aidan, now in a second. I know actually, Aidan, you have Connor under there as your name, but that's okay. It's Aidan chatting to us today. But just, I suppose, some housekeeping bits and some bits and pieces in case we lose some of you at the end. So really just to expose you to some of ISESA's activities going on at the moment. So on Monday last, we had our blog released from Aidan Walsh from ATU Galway, who's a postgrad there, talking about his research into concussion in female sports. And also he provided some insights into, maybe if you're considering doing a PhD or in the process of it or completing one. So really nice pieces there. On Monday coming, we have our podcast released with Bruce Wardrop and Tom Barr, 400-meter hurdler, has kindly done a podcast for us, which would be great. So that will be released Monday morning. So tune into that. And then our next webinar for your diaries is on March 21st, Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. And Professor Niall Moyna is doing a webinar for us titled Healthy Living in a Changing World, the Role of Physical Activity. So that's a date for your diary, and a link will be sent around that you can register through like you did today. So today I'd very much like to welcome Aidan O'Connell. Huge experience in sports science, particularly in team sports. So I'm going to make it sound like many years now, Aidan, but one of our first sport and exercise science graduates here in Ireland. So many years to reflect upon and to bring expertise and show us his expertise from team sports, particularly as a senior S&C coach from Munster, Rugby, Leinster Rugby, the national team, and now with Cork GAA as head of high performance. So loads to share with us. So Aidan, we really thank you for being here. We'll let you do your presentation. And if anyone has any question and answers, please do pop them in the chat throughout. And at the end of Aidan's presentation, we'll be able to feed them into you then, Aidan. And the webinar is also going to be recorded that you can listen back or share the link on afterwards. So thank you very much. And Aidan, welcome and thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah Jane. Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be presenting today and reflecting from what seems like my long 30-year career. It was an interesting process. Tom Cummins asked me to present a couple of months back, and I got to work on it, of course, last week. And I've been, I suppose, thinking about it, reflecting on my career, and writing up this presentation for the last week. And it was a great process. It was kind of an emotional process, to be fair, because you're thinking about things and happenings and people you've met, cups you've won, cups you've lost, games you've won, games you've lost, people you've lost along the way, over a course of 30 years. And I found it, yeah, it was an amazing process, but it was tough. And I hope I reflected well here now in this presentation. One of the more difficult bits of it was wondering what to put in and to leave out. But I've gone with something like this. So I'm going to start with my key learnings, and that's around my big take-homes from my career so far that I'd like to share with you, that you might find, I suppose, interesting. And I've also going to chat about my philosophies around some of the core areas like strength, fitness, motor learning, skill acquisition, and also going to chat through key influential people as well that have shaped my career, and I suppose people I think about when I have to make big decisions in my job as well. So that's key learnings. Going to move on then to my strength and conditioning career, which I'll run you through that. Through Sarah Jane mentioned Munster, Leinster, and now with Cork. So I run through that. Also, as a high performance manager, my current job, chat through the ins and outs of that, and finish then with questions and answers, because I think there's a lot of richness to be got from that. So if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them at the end. So I'll tear into the presentation there now. So some of the main learnings in my 30-year career, is that as a strength and conditioning coach, and that it's so important that we work with the other sports science domains, whether that's nutrition, whether that's sports psychology, that we're working together, skill acquisition, that we're working together, helping the coach and the manager facilitate and optimize his practice design. I suppose earlier on in my career, I thought it was all about just strength, make the players as strong as possible, worked very much in a silo. As I've grown a bit older and wiser, I think I've learned to collaborate better. And I think it's a core skill, working within a team environment, because a lot of the teams I work with have big backroom staff, and to get the most out of them, it's really important that I suppose you have the characteristics of a team player. Secondly, and there's a couple of other characteristics that I think are very prominent in excellent practitioners out there and who work in the team setting as sports scientists, is that the really good practitioners care, you know, and there's a famous saying that I don't care how much you know until you know. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's really, really important, that when you're working with a group, you must care deeply about them, give a lot to them, invest your time with them. But that's one aspect of it. You still need to know your stuff as well, you know. So care deeply about your athletes, but also you need to care a lot about yourself as well. It's sport, and elite sport can be an interesting environment. There's a lot of energy. People are heavily invested in it. It's your hobby as well, oftentimes. So you just need to look after yourself as well. It's a roller coaster, you know, only one team wins at the end of the year, most competitions. So it's really important to take care of yourself as well. So look after others, but take care of yourself. And during my career, definitely, I've had 4, 5, 6 incidences of burnout, and that's quite common in elite sport as well. So it's important to check yourself as well and look after yourself. Another important characteristic that I've seen in sports scientists or the conditioning coaches, data analysts across the domains, is that really good operators, again, they learn to connect. They're good, excellent communicators. They communicate. It's very easy in terms of communication to your language is really important in how you communicate. And in terms of sports science, and particularly in terms of data, it's really important that we speak the language of the coaches, that we simplify our message down, particularly when we're connecting with coaches, find out what they want. And then when we communicate back to them, when we visualize our data, for example, that it makes sense and logical sense to them as well. The other side of connection is there's a professional connection as well, but also a personal connection. It's really important to form good bonds with everyone who works in the backroom team. I know of one particular coach working at a very, very elite level. To get closer to his coach so we could influence him and connect better with him, he hitched a ride to training every day from his house with the coach so he could build and foster that relationship. So that's really, really important. The next characteristic that's crucial in terms of working in team sports and in a backroom team as a sports scientist is that you need to know your craft. You know, you just need to know the X's and O's of your job. And that's because sometimes when you start out, you won't know everything, but once you're striving to learn, once you're working hard, once you're being dedicated to the craft, it goes a long way. So that's important that you're good at what you're doing, because you can care and connect. But if your craft and if your I suppose if there's areas of improvement or weaknesses in your craft, then they need attending to as well. So that's care, connect, craft, and of course it's really, really important as well to have the crack. So important. It can be tough environments, but it's really important that you can check yourself, and I suppose realize that, you know, in relative terms, it's sport, it's the entertainment business as well, and making sure that you're enjoying yourself and checking yourself as well during the whole process. So collaboration, care, connect, craft, and crack. So I've met four people along my journey that have really influenced my career. This is a wonderful picture. This is a picture of Dr. PJ Smith. He was my lecturer in UL. And you can even see by his eyes here, he was so invested in what he did. He was a wonderful lecturer, and his main area of expertise was in skill acquisition and performance psychology. He over the course of my 4 years in UL, he instilled in us a great understanding of skill acquisition, and the importance of coaching skills. That's how we give feedback, when we give feedback, how we demonstrate if we're coaching, what type of session design, what's the best and what's the optimal session design. So he instilled this knowledge around session design in how we coach, and in coaching skills, which I've kept with me for my career. And it's hugely, hugely important, because it's not what you know, then it's how you get it across, and your coaching skills are crucial for that. And he was a major, major influence. Secondly, this is Liam Hennessy, Dr. Liam Hennessy. He's a fine Tipperary man. He gave me my break. My first job was with the IRFU, and he had faith in me and gave me my first job. He was the director of fitness at the IRFU at the time, and he's played a massive role in my career as a mentor, but also just watching what he did, how he interacted with players. But he set in place three really important strategic plans with the IRFU, which have held him in good stead to this day. Firstly, he placed a strength and conditioning coach in each one of the provinces, and he had them centrally contracted. So this is really, really important, because it meant that these strength and conditioning coaches were immune to any coaches being removed or, for example, sacked or leaving their posts. So it meant that there was continuity of strength and conditioning coaches within the provinces, and they were allowed to grow and develop as a result. This is hugely important and a massive strategic move. Secondly, he laid fantastic foundations in terms of the monitoring process, and that was across load monitoring, wellness monitoring, and performance monitoring. He set up systems in terms of subjective and objective monitoring that are still done to this day. They might have changed slightly in terms of it was more pen and paper then, and nowadays it's probably more app-based and more tech-based, but he set strong foundations in terms of monitoring that are still thriving to this day. And thirdly, and importantly as well, Liam really espoused the importance of the warm-up as an athletic development strategy. He set up and he instilled in us that those 15 minutes at the start of a session, multiplied by 4 times a week, that 1 hour, is huge in terms of athletic development, whether it be speed, agility, movement, mechanics. And he not only instilled in us the importance of that, but also that it was worth planning for, and it was just as important as the main session or your strength program or your fitness program. That think deeply about your warm-up and use it as an athletic development vehicle. So I'm thankful for Liam for that, and I suppose this is an example of our athletic development warm-up framework here in Cork, which has those core elements of movement skills, skills to developing jumping power and develop your explosive strength, but also elements of speed there as well. Next guy up, next big influence on me. This guy is Marcelo Bielsa. I'm a massive Leeds fan and a massive soccer fan in general, but in terms of fitness, I'm obsessed with I could have used Klopp in this as well, but when Bielsa was in charge of Leeds, they were an extremely fit team, but they were an extremely fit team as a result of the way he set up the team in terms of how They pressed when they didn't have the ball, when they pressed when they had the ball, their speed of transition. So everyone knew their roles. There was clarity around their positions on the pitch. And as a result of playing this high tempo, upbeat style of soccer, the team got exceptionally fit. And I'm a firm believer that teams, one of the biggest drivers of fitness in any team is a very strong philosophy from the head coach around how they play. And if you play with tempo, if the players know their roles, etc., then it's a really strong strategy and a really powerful strategy to get your team really, really fit. Another side of this is skillful teams, and teams like Bielsa's Leeds or even Liverpool's Klopp at the moment, and many top GA teams as well. Players, when they know their role within a system, they're also become very economical in terms of their movement, and they can save energy and then express that energy when needs be during those white hot moments during a game. So really, really important. Yes, general fitness is important. General fitness in terms of energy system development, in terms of aerobic capacity and aerobic power development is of course important, and every program needs a sprinkling of this. But in my opinion, the most powerful driver is the way that the team plays and their work ethic and their ability to play with high tempo from the first minute to when the final minute or the final whistle is blown at the end of the game. So that's Marcelo Bielsa. Next man up, an Australian, Dan Baker. So Dan Baker is one of the forefathers of strength, and why he influenced me in my career is I visited him in Brisbane in 2008. He was the first strength and conditioning practitioner. He's also has a doctorate from his applied learnings in strength and conditioning. He applied a lot of the thoughts and thinking behind powerlifting and Olympic lifting and the functional training movement in America. He packaged that together for team sports. You know, he was one of the first practitioners who understood how to develop strength, explosive power, reactive strength. And he was pulling from all these other sports like powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and looking at it from an injury prevention point of view. And he packaged that into something that could be used in a team sport setting. And I'm hugely influenced by Dan Baker from that perspective. Our strength and power framework here in Cork, that we apply to all our teams from under 14 level all the way up, is influenced by that Australian movement, and all our programs here have squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull, brace, and jump. All these sessions. And he's got a great saying as well, does Dan, that we have to earn the right to progress. Technique is king in the gym, and progressions need to be made when you master the level that you're on. So for example, here, we at Cork, we go from our push-up to a weighted push-up, then dumbbell bench onto a bench press. So the players have to earn the right. And I suppose that's a really good example of progressive overload. And that brings me onto my next point here, which is during my career, I sense check whenever I have to plan or review or look at programs, build return to play programs, build strength programs or fitness programs. I'm always guided by the principles of fitness. And these principles they're etched into my brain. I'm always cross-checking. I'm always sense-checking everything I do to these 5 principles. And they are progressive overload, that all our programs need to be overloaded progressively. They need to be specific to the sport mechanically. They need to be specific from a structural point of view, a metabolic point of view. They have to look like the game. Programs need to be individualized as well. We need to progress for some. We need to regress for other people. There needs to be continuity in a program as well. And also there needs to be variability within the week of a program, but also within the blocks as well. There needs to be days that are high, there needs to be days that are medium, there needs to be days that are low. So these principles are, I suppose, some of my learnings are that these principles, they guide a lot of my thinking and programming and programmed reflection when I look across the different teams that I work with here in Cork. So really, really important. So, right. So I'll just move it on here, and I'm going to move through my career and how I ended up where I've ended up. I grew up in a small village in North Cork called Ballyclaw, and this is a picture. I wasn't playing in this team now. I wasn't playing. This is 1954, but my dad, I can't get the cursor on him here, just here. That's my dad, and that's one uncle, and that's another uncle with the cup here. So I grew up with these stories of Castlemagner hurling and football, who were a very successful team in Cork at the time. And I think my love of sport grew out of that. It also grew out of I this obsession with Leeds United at the time as well when I was growing up. So I was deeply sporty. I probably reached the peak of my own career when I was 12, and I went backwards for then, but I held on to my love of sport, and it led me to UL and to Thomond to study sports science. And I was there from 93 to 97, and it was a new course. We were the very, very first graduates of sports science. We're real newbies. Had a great time there. We had fantastic lecturers, amazing lecturers like PJ, like Dave Weldrick, all these lecturers who really shaped me in the way I think about sports science and strength and conditioning sense. But also I made great friends socially. It was wonderful. I still friends as a gang of us from sports science. Some of these 30 years ago moved on into different realms, but we still meet up regularly, and it's amazing that these lads still, this is now 30 years later, they still know the names of the books, like the physiology book, McCarthy Catch and Catch, or they'll know the skill acquisition book by McGill that we studied with PJ. So it had a profound effect on me. College had. It was a wonderful time down in UL, and while I was there, I was interested in all the different domains. I was interested in skill acquisition, sports psychology, nutrition. I didn't really know where to go with my career. And there was a placement in third year, and I followed this man. This is Dave Mahidi. He's just retired. He was the head of the UL Arena for many, many years. And Dave Mahidi was, as far as I knew, was the only fitness coach in Ireland in the 90s. Well, certainly he was the most famous anyway. And I went along with him for a training session he was doing with Old Crescent Rugby Club one night, and I watched what he was doing, and it lit a fire in me. I just watched him, and I said, "Geez, you know what? I want to do that." There was something about I suppose what he did with the players, which was of deep interest to me, and it lit a fire. And I just went about figuring out how was I going to study this area. And I applied for a master's in coaching studies in the University of Edinburgh. I was there for a year, and I was lucky. I studied under Professor Mike Stone. It was an MSc in coaching studies, but it was really coaching science and strength and conditioning is what I studied. Again, I was coming to the end of my year here, and I knocked on Professor Stone's office. I'll never forget it. And I'd heard that in the States, the colleges where he'd come from, that they offer placements, strength and conditioning intern placementships. So I decided to go in, meet Mike, and I went into the office and asked him any possibility of hooking me up with an internship in the States. He pulled out his wallet and he loaded these business cards, and they were all it was strength and conditioning leads from Yale, from Caltech, from Berkeley, from Harvard, from UCLA, and he just said, "Leave that with me, and I'll see what I can do for you." I remember just leaving the office, and I was on cloud nine because I knew something kind of special had happened there, and I was just hoping and praying that this would come good. Sure enough, I got a phone call that summer from Mike Stone saying, could I pack my bags and head to Yale University for an internship? And that was the next stage of my career. I was there for a year. Oh, it was an amazing experience. I was really raw. I had no clue how to coach, but I was thrown in at the deep end here, and we were coaching student athletes from 8 in the morning to basically 8 at night. Um, I for every group from ice hockey that you can see here to American footballers to basketball teams. So it was a wonderful experience. I got a lot of coaching hours in, but I also learned the skill, and it's so important, and it's what I look for a lot of our SSC coaches here in Cork is that the ability to coach large groups. It's a skill. It's very different than to coaching one-on-one or even coaching 2 or 3 on 1. It's a skill in itself. The sessions need to be unbelievably well planned, very well choreographed, and you need to be very, very clear in your style of coaching. It needs to be very direct. So coaching large groups is a skill, and I picked up that skill, or the start of that skill, certainly at Yale University. And also, at the time, I went over to a guy called Steve Plisk. He was one of the founding fathers of the NSCA association in America, and he had this wonderful library of texts, all the Soviet greats in strength and conditioning, like Vershansky and Isherin, Schmidt, Bleicher, to the American strength and conditioning coaches like Gambetta, Mike Boyle, Michael Yesis. So he had a massive library, and I just went in there, and every evening after work, and I was photocopying and just reading up as much as I could about the area. So it was. I still have these folders at home in my man shed in my back garden still. So it's really important actually to be led in the right direction initially. You know, when you're starting out your career, that you know, I suppose, who to read and what to read, and be guided and mentored on the right path there, because there's so much info out there at the moment. It's hard to know. So I was really, really lucky that this process was filtered for me early on in my career. So that was hugely important. From Yale, I got a lucky break. I got a very lucky break, and I got a job at the IRFU, and I was positioned in Leinster Rugby, and it was an amazing 3 years. I started off in the academy, working with the schools and with their esteemed academy. I was there for 6 months, and then an opportunity knocked, and I was thrown in. I was thrown to the Lions, pardon the pun. I was thrown in with the first team here, and it was a real baptism of fire. I'd come from America, you know. I had basic skills, but literally I was leading out the program for a professional rugby team. I cut my teeth here. At the time, myself and Dave Fagan here to the right. So Dave is a wonderful coach. I have him here as Dave the mentor. He welcomed me with open arms. Myself and Dave did all the coaching, he did the strength, and then I did everything else. For example, the speed, the fitness, all the nutrition at the time. We didn't have big, massive backroom teams like there is now. I did all the nutrition as well. All the recovery programs. So I just jumped into it. I cut my teeth there. Sometimes I wonder how to have the confidence to do that at the time, being so young. But somebody like Dave was a massive mentor. I just watched him closely, how he interacted with the players. He already was there for a few years. He's still at Leinster, doing an unbelievable job. But I watched him closely, how he challenged the players, but how he supported the players as well. He was yeah, that was really, really important. And he also, as I said at the start, he welcomed me to Leinster as well. I was fresh and new and probably a bit overconfident, but he wasn't like setting me straight. But we worked really good as a team, or really well as a team together. So Dave Fagan, yeah, he's a legend, great guy. From there, from Leinster, it was straight down to Munster Rugby, and I was really fortunate to join a very special culture. I was lucky when I joined. We were a very successful team. There was a wonderful performance culture there, wonderful people. As you can see from the picture there, it was just great crack. It was a mighty place to work. I split Munster into 2 phases. The first phase here was the early days from 2004 2013. We had 2 centres. We won in Cork. How it operated was one in Cork, one in Limerick. We did our strength and conditioning in Cork and Limerick on Mondays and Wednesdays separately. Then we came together for training either in Cork or Limerick on Tuesday, or Cork or Limerick on Thursday. So it was very different to what it is today. They've one fantastic centre in Limerick, but then it was 2 centres, 2 locations. And, you know, it was a time where, you know, when you're working from 2 centres like that, when you're split, your communication needs to be really, really good. And I developed a lot of really great and a great appreciation for the importance of the ability to communicate across the department as well at that time. We had a wonderful department at the time as well, strength and conditioning department, and my kids were young, and my son Barry was young at the time, but to this day, I can still remember him calling Daddy Tom Joe Jim, Daddy Tom Joe Jim. That's how close we were, because I was always chatting about Tom Cummins, who worked out of Limerick, and he was the speed specialist. Joe Gallina, he was in Limerick also, and he was the specialist he was coming from 5 years as a strength and conditioning coach with Wigan Athletic in England in the Premiership. So Joe was the specialist in conditioning, in integrating rugby into our fitness. He did a wonderful job of that. Jim was the intern. He's now head of strength and conditioning, Jim Maloney in Treviso, and I worked at the time with Jim in Cork. And my main job, and throughout most of my career, was as the strength coach, strength lead here. So Daddy Tom Joe Jim, brilliant times, and brilliant crew, and we worked really, really well together. Now, it was some crack. This is Donica with the eye patch. So the players were full of energy, full of crack. This was during the annual photo shoot. 1 year he had an eye patch. Another year he put in Dracula dentures in that the photographer who's doing the annual pic only spotted when he was processing the photographs afterwards. So there was all this great development with the players, between the players. So it was hugely enjoyable place to work in. But these players as well, though, you know, they were serious about their business. Donica was serious about his business. They challenged back. They were always demanding more. They'd come back from Lions tours and they wanted to do X, Y, and Z that they see in the English and the Welsh lads do. And that's the same today. That's the same today. There's a lot of new information out there. There's a lot of new trends. And it's very important as practitioners then that we, you know, when players come to us with these trends, with things that they want to do, with the tech, with their wearables at the moment as well, in terms of, like, you know, they'll be chatting about heart rate variability with you. They'll be chatting about their sleep app, for example. It's really important that we listen to our players as well. But I suppose that we can filter the signal from the noise here as well, that we research these new trends, these areas, place them up to our own principles. Do they fit? Will they fit into our own methods and our own ways of doing things within our setups as well? And that's crucial. And that's really, really, really important process. And you need to take time over that and leave the dust settle as well in a lot of these trends, and then make your decisions from there. But importantly, you know, players will come to you with great ideas. Listen to them. Some you'll take on board, others you won't. But it needs to be a two-way street with the players, because they're a great source of knowledge. The second part of my career with Munster then was 2013 to 2019. I just call this, it was a specialist era. It was the era of where GPS really took off. Sports science was being embedded before that, but it really took off at this stage in terms of GPS. We had a deeper understanding how to use it. We had a specialist, Adam Sheehan, just on GPS, and we were using GPS both individually to gain knowledge about our players, but collectively from a team perspective. It was also at this time as well starting to be used to influence how we design training. So we'd use GPS to build our big extensive days, our our intensive speed training days or our recovery days. We cross-check our sessions to see did we tick those boxes. So it became a really, really useful method in terms of planning our weeks and building our training load safely and effectively as well. Specialist era, because it was at this time as well that we started working more and digging deeper into our individual areas. I spent a lot of time on strength before and after this period, but at this time I did a lot of work regarding recovery and movement skills. Did a deep dive in there. As I said, Adam was on GPS. We'd speed specialists as well. By this stage, we had a nutritionist on board as well, and at the end of this year as well, full-time nutritionists as well. So we've gone from no nutritionist, for example, in the early noughties to part-time nutritionist Graham Close around 2010, 11 and 12 to now where we're the full-time nutritionist as well. So we were starting to get deeper and deeper into the science and into the individual areas. So you know, things were progressing. And finally here as well, the act of persuasion. I think it's worth mentioning as well that how we speak to the athletes and how we sell what we want them to do is really, really, really important. We had a coach called Bryce Kavanagh who came over from Australia. He was excellent at this, in terms of selling concept to players. One of them was, he had the Maldini project. So a lot of our Paolo Maldini was part of an AC Milan team, and they had a lot of players in the late 30s, and they had the AC Milan lab, and they were getting a lot out of their players into their late 30s. Or the age, some of our players like Dunica, Ron Nogara, Peter Springer, a lot of our key players were getting into their 30s and mid 30s, and we went after this area, but the way we packaged it was the Maldini project. It was the other 22 hours where we focused heavily on recovery and sleep, nutrition, water modalities. So we set about a really extensive program in terms of these areas, and we packaged it under Maldini project. So it's important. Another area was Flippy Floppy Stiffy was I was in charge of the movement system and of building mobility and stability with the players. And again, with 3 buckets, with the floppy players, we had the stiffy players who needed plenty of mobility, and with the floppy players then who went from one group to another. So that was the Flippy Floppy Stiffy. So again, language is so important when we're trying to sell and persuade and coax players and into these different areas. It got more, I suppose, heavy at this stage as well, but I suppose what's important as well to realize that we still kept connection, and it was always really strong, and it's a really important principle to have kept the connection with the players. Adam Walters is chatting to Peter O'Mahony here, and Adam always collected his GPS, his RPE, which is a measure of how we monitor training. He always collected it after training. Sometimes that's done via an app, but Aidan always did that manually. He met every single player after training because he believed it was a great way to just have that contact with the player on that day. He'd meet the 40 players, get the number off them, but also he'd a quick split-second chat with those players to see how they were feeling. So just really, really important that, yeah, it's important to embrace the technology, but also it's really, really important to have systems and processes as well that allows you to stay in contact with the players and glean information off them by just chatting to the players in a really natural way as well. So in between this as well, sandwiched in between it, I worked with Cork GAA, and this is between 2008 and 2012. It was very much a one-man band. I was working with Munster at the time,
And I got the opportunity to become the lead strength and conditioning coach with the Cork senior footballers. I went in and I did everything. We didn't have the big crew like we had at Munster, so I learned something really, really important from this process as well, and that was how important it is when you're on your own. There's great learnings because you have to do everything, again, from nutrition to speed to fitness to strength programming. And you learn really, really important skills around prioritization and systemization as well. And I really prioritized heavy here. And they were a very fit team anyway. So I went after that. So built on that with their coach, Conor Coonahan. But more importantly, I went after their strength really heavily. And up to this, there was very little collective gym sessions being done with Gaelic football teams. So we met consistently on a Monday night, and they did a second session then on a Thursday as well. I monitored and tracked their strength scores religiously during this time. So I picked one area and went after it heavily, and we made massive progress over my 4 years here in terms of their strength. But it's when you're on your own, it's really, really important. That it's hard to go deep in all the areas, but then you're forced to prioritize. So it's important that whatever you prioritize, you put a lot of thinking into the area as well. And now it brings me as well to my current job. In 2019, an opportunity arose within Cork GAA. The CEO here, Kevin O'Donovan, realised that in terms of all the components of performance, that there was a need to systemize and build sustainable structures around strength and conditioning, around nutrition. There was a lot of gaps there. There was a lot of practices that were very ad hoc. There was no pathway from underage up to senior. There was different practitioners operating with different philosophies all around the system. So he showed great vision, and he set up a position of high performance manager, and I applied for it, and I got it, and I've been here since 2019. And it's basically, the job is to work with the various managers from under 15 all the way up to senior across hurling and football, and to build and help those managers build service provision around their players. So from service provision, I mean from performance video analysis to GPS, to building strength and conditioning structures and teams, to the medical teams, including physio, across to nutrition, sports psychology, and lifestyle. So build a holistic model, and then monitor and develop these structures. And that's been my job for the last 4.5 years. 4.5 years is fascinating job, getting to work with brilliant people and building something from the ground up. It was almost like a startup company, and it's hugely satisfying working with the array of different coaches and managers and the skills that they're bringing, but also the different practitioners across all the realms of strength and conditioning. Just a quick look at my high performance model. It's a holistic model where I'm managing across the game and training in terms of video analysis again, training analysis and training management, as I said, through GPS and through video analysis. There's the body side of things, the physical and the medical, strength and conditioning, injury prevention, injury management, and then from the psychosocial point of view then as well, nutrition, psychology, and lifestyle. So again, just like my first time at Cork, I had to prioritize what's important. One of the main areas I decided to focus on was to build up the strength and conditioning structures within the county. As I previously said, there was a lot of teams had had strength and conditioning coaches, but there was various different philosophies. There was no joint up thinking, no structures, and certainly no pathway. So I went about fixing that. Arduous task. There's a lot of players here. There's over 20 teams and 500. And when it's when the squads, I suppose, are at their fattest and biggest during the winter months, there's up to 750 athletes to take care of as well. So this is how I approached it, and these are the strategies I apply to upregulate the strength and conditioning systems within the county. I simply assigned a coach per team to the 20 plus teams. Difficult enough task because it's hard to find enough qualified coaches within the county to do that. So that was another body of work, upskilling coaches, and also bringing coaches in that you could upskill that have potential. So definitely I hired for skill, but also brought people in that I knew had potential to become really good coaches over time. Standardized the athletic development program so that there was a pathway, there was structures there, that it wasn't ad hoc, it wasn't somebody else's philosophy, it was very much our philosophy, our Cork philosophy. And I centralized testing as well. And you can see on the right here, that's a big testing day that we run quarterly. We bring in all our athletes on one particular day. And so I centralized that, standardized the testing. Facility wise, next big project was, we have a really good gym here that can cater up to 40 athletes, but I also hired gyms regionally around the county as well, so that we could train players regionally. So we've CrossFit gym because they suit our purpose, and we can train large numbers in there. We have a CrossFit gym in Middleton, in Mallow, Clonakilty, and we also use MTU's gym as well to train our athletes. So another strategy I used was coach development. So we had a lot of different coaches with different levels of experience coming in. So big focus on coach development through CPD, a lot of internal CPD where we bring in subject experts to all our coaches here. We built up a coaching network. A lot of the coaches know each other well at this stage. For example, I also act as a mentor to a lot of these coaches as well, constantly on the phone to them. They're always on the phone to one another, which is great as well. So you have the 20s football coach chatting to the 20s hurling coach, for example, and sharing their ideas and their problems. So it's just this rich environment where there's a collection of coaches that are very, I suppose, well connected to each other, and they're learning off each other, but they're also learning by doing as well and getting that practical experience. And also to learn, as I said really early in this piece as well, also they're learning to learn how to coach large groups, which is a crucial skill. And then this continuity piece as well, really, really important that we have coaches in the system and that we have a pathway, and that we can keep coaches in our system for a number of years. It can often happen that the coaches come in, they're in for a year and then they go. I'm very fortunate here that our coaches, for example, our 20s coaches have been in the system, our hurling football 20s strength conditioning coaches have worked at minor level, have worked their way up. Our minor coaches have worked in the academy and have worked their way into that position as well. So there's a pathway there, and it's a clear pathway. And it's a really important strategy for us here to keep these strength and conditioning coaches in the system so that they can grow and develop year on year. And here with the boys in Middleton, in the gym in Middleton at Christmas time. So this is one example of one of our regional gyms. And as I said, we have another gym in Mallow, we have a gym in Tycho in Cork, and we have also a gym in Clonakilty. So big thing we focus on, yes, the nuts and bolts of strength conditioning, but also ensuring that the players and the teenagers, when they're in our system, that they're enjoying it and that they're having a good experience too. So I'm sure. Finally, our sports science team. This is another major area that I felt was important within the realms of the performance teams from minor, under 20 and senior, that we upregulated this system. we've been working hard in the last few years to bring our sports science practices up to scratch. Again, before I came in, there was good work being done, but again, it just depended on the practitioner, and there was very little, I suppose, joint up thinking, and there was big gaps in the system as well. So one of the ways I addressed that was working with the different universities, MTU, Cork, Tralee, in UL. I set up a student placement program. And here are the students on the right hand side here. They're actually in last Monday, and we assigned a scientist per performance team. So each one of these individuals were assigned to either the senior hurling or football team, the under-20s, or the minor team, where they acted as sports scientists, but also they were assistant, and they help out and they assist in anything to do with strength and conditioning with the lead with their particular team. That's 3 nights a week. Then every Monday and Tuesday they come in, and their data, which they monitor, they collect, and they report on this data every Monday. The data types that they'll collect, it will be their GPS, so they're getting wonderful experience working and knowing how to use GPS. So they report on the GPS, they report on player availability, and they report on wellness metrics as well. They're also upskilled on the Monday and Tuesday, so they're forced to present on a topic. It could be recovery, it could be strength, so they'll be upskilled in that. I run workshops on warm up, on speed and strength, with the gang as well on a Tuesday. So it's a really rich environment where they're upskilled. They get upskilled by doing out with the team, by being able to assimilate and report on their data, but also they get upskilled on the nuts and bolts of strength conditioning as well. And with the sole purpose of for the gang with us this year and for every year is that it perhaps will motivate them and light a fire like it did for me when I was on my internship in Yale as well. And hopefully some of this gang will pursue career in strength and conditioning or one of the realms of sports science as well. But also another key focus here was continuity. And at the back here, I wanted to get good people inside the fence here. And we have a great person here at the back and 2 great lads. Conor Clancy is doing his master's on GPS currently. He came in 4 years ago as a student placement student from UL, and he worked with the senior hurlers. He's still there 4 years later. So we have his knowledge that has grown over the 4 years across sports science. He very much coordinates this student placement program and does a wonderful job managing this crew of students. And it's been a really, really important process, and it's something I'm hoping to grow in the next couple of years as well. We've also a master's student. She's Claudia Carney. She's not in the picture here, but she's out in MTU studying growth and maturation, and she looks after one of our underage teams as well. So it's creating those links with the colleges and developing students and empowering them is really important, and it's a key focus for us here in Cork GA as well. And that's it, that's it. I've had 30 amazing years. I've been privileged to be working in sports. I've met amazing friends, amazing people, and I just think some of the key messages and take homes that you can bring home is that it's so important to collaborate, to be a team player, care about your athletes, but care about yourself, connect, work on your communication skills, know your craft inside out, and make sure as well that you get that balance in your life, and that you don't take it too seriously, and you've plenty of craft during the way as well. And that's it. I've just got a list of the gang of people that I worked with down to the years as well here. Worked with some wonderful people throughout my 30 years, and that's I suppose I'm name checking lots of people there, I've forgotten, I'm more than likely forgotten one or two as well, but some wonderful people here who were great team players, who care deeply about what they're doing, were brilliant crack, but were fantastic coaches, and skilled operators. So thank you. Thanks for listening. If you've any questions, please, you can put it into the chat box, and I'm more than happy to chat through that for what's remaining of the session.
Aidan, thank you so much. That was fantastic. You've huge knowledge and experience over the years and that you were sharing with us there. If anyone has any questions, you can pop them into the chat and we can feed them in. I know we're on time now at 2 o'clock, but just for the last minute or two, if there's anything there. It's a common theme that does seem to be coming up, this whole idea of having people who've been influential in your career and having mentors. That really seemed to be a big part of your career as well.
Yeah, Sergeant, it's really, really important, you know, that you're always learning from other people, you know, but I suppose it's choosing who to learn from is important as well, so that they're guiding you and pointing you in the right direction as well, you know, but I think for a lot of definitely younger people listening in here, you still have to jump in and build up your coaching hours as well, or your practice hours, or your, you know, if you're a sports scientist, just your hours on the job, because the most important thing is to learn by doing.
And you were even saying there with the hours, you know, it is a long career with busy hours and risk of burnout, and for, you know, the sport and exercise scientists as well. So even trying to, outside your working hours or even in them, how do you stay on top of the most up-to-date literature and knowledge and make sure that you really are bringing?
Yeah, like I have from my early days, I've a pretty extensive library at home. You know, like I was saying, like I've big collections of different works, and I read a lot. A lot of my learning currently is by talking to other practitioners. You know, what are you experiencing out there? Taking learnings from those practitioners. So I'm on the phone a lot. I'm dealing, I suppose, with a lot of high performing people, and I have a lot of connections with people all over the world. So I chat to them a lot and see what's kind of what they think, what's hot, what's not hot, but also Twitter as well. So but I suppose I'm careful with my time there, because you get lost down a rabbit hole. So that's another great way, and just keeping up with the scientific literature as well. But I mainly do that through Twitter, and but I'm very selective on who I follow there as well. You know,
yeah, you could, as you say, go down rabbit holes, couldn't you?
100%.
Yeah. So say over the 30 years, what's probably been like the biggest or most exciting change in sports science that you've seen, or has there been a huge development?
You know, obviously, we're in the age of AI now. It's going to change radically. But like that's going to help us bring a lot of the data together and make sense of that. We still need to communicate what that's saying back to the players. So ultimately, I don't think a whole lot has changed. You know, it's still grounded by principles. A lot of the monitoring has been the same. It's just that we're getting a bit, I suppose we're getting better. I suppose, Sarah Jane, no, like thinking about it, I don't think it's changed hugely. I don't think it's changed hugely. But I think what we need to work at and continue to work at is working as a backroom team as well, to make sure that we're harnessing the wisdom of the crowd. Basically, we're not working in our silos, that we're helping each other give great information to the coaching staff and the players. But sports science wise, I'm probably missing something there, but it's always been there. We're lucky Ireland's so strong, actually.
Yeah, we have a huge network, and you know, everyone is open to, you know, reaching out and having a chat to. And something you did highlight there is, like, I suppose we have all the resources and supports available. It's actually communicating that information back to the athletes, the players, the coaches, and amongst ourselves in the different teams, the multidisciplinary teams, isn't it? So that whole communication piece is huge.
Communication piece is huge. It's huge. And that's why we get our students to present, you know, our placement students to present every week, so they can hone in that craft, so they can speak in front of the crowd, and they can, you know, they can get their point across clearly and succinctly as well. Really, really, really important. But you need to know your stuff as well. You know, that's only, you know, there needs to be a depth to your knowledge also.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any more questions coming in. I'd just like to say thank you so much for sharing all that with us today. I know it's a huge job reflecting back over the years and trying to bring it together. So hugely beneficial for the sport and exercise science community to hear from you. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, Sarah Jane, yeah, delighted to do it. Delighted to share my learnings from the 30 years. You know, the longer you're in it, the more questions you have as well. You know, and it's always evolving. So thank you so much. Thanks for the people out there as well for tuning in, and I hope they found it beneficial as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. So this is going to be recorded, or it has been. So it will be uploaded to the website so that if anyone wants to listen back and see some of the names and the ideas that Aidan has shared with us. And then also, as I said, our next webinar will be on March 21st from 1 to 2 with Professor Niall Moyna, talking about the healthy living in a changing world and that role of physical activity, the importance there. And also try stay in the loop with ISESA. So go onto our website and you know, put in your details so you can be put on our mailing list and you'll get all this information from us, or even email us at info@isesa.ie. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining us, everyone.